Hi, if you clicked on this video, you're probably thinking,
My neck is more powerful, you're just exaggerating.
so I want to get into a bit of depth here and just sort of go step by step of why each part of his kit just comes together to create this fundamentally broken killer, and why it's just sort of unfun to face, and later on we'll delve into how to fix these things. So first we're going to start off with 1x's passive, which I swear to God was stated in the game somewhere with this eventually removed, but regardless, it still exists. Every single one of 1x's attacks applies glitched and poisoned. Glitched makes your screen look all messy, and really it just exists to be sort of annoying to the player, and it can be disabled in the settings via epilepsy mode.
Yeah, that's really fucking broken. Can the devs fix that, please?
But regardless, it applies weakness, which is kind of strange, and I'll get into that later. And then poison, as you know, just inflicts a damage over time effect, which cannot kill, unlike Cool Kid's Burn. So as a ranged killer, these effects allow him to do more damage from afar, but what doesn't make sense is that glitched is more effective up close, because see, it applies weakness and it stacks per hit. So you are rewarded for chaining hits up close, rather than being rewarded for hitting your ranged attacks, which is odd. And you'll notice a recurring theme in the video where I talk about 1x being more of this close range killer rather than this long range like they seemingly were intended to be. So something I would do to fix this, honestly, is just make his ranged attack apply more glitched, or just have slash not apply glitched at all, and just poison. Moving up to Mass Infection. Mass Infection is pretty great of an ability, allowing 1x to do massive amounts of damage to multiple people at once if he gets a good shot in, or just being able to pressure a survivor mid-chase into running into an unfavorable position. The list goes on. But yet again, the main way you'll see this ability being used is by forcing the survivor into a situation in which they're up close, they have little to no stam, and you're right in front of them. They have to make a decision to dodge one way or the other.
Jarvis, can we get a visual on that?
If you predict correctly, you get the shot in, it does a lot of damage, and if you miss, oh well, you can try again 14 seconds later. This attack's damage should honestly just scale with range, because there is no reason for it to be only really effective up close and be practically harmless from a long range. And moving on to Entanglement, which I believe to be 1x's most powerful ability by far, and honestly most game breaking. When I talk about game breaking, I'm referring to Forsaken's balance in regards to stamina management, just general positioning to get away from the killer. So say you start pre-running, or you start holding this loop early, so you have a good distance advantage, a good stamina advantage. Well, if you get unlucky and 1x just predicts correctly, then you can kiss that stamina advantage goodbye, and you're forced into this scenario in which you're constantly losing. Because even if you manage to get away from that entanglement plus M1, he still has Mass Infection, he still has Unstable Eye. All of these abilities come together to create this extremely oppressive, close-ranged killer. And again, to repeat myself a little more, Entanglement is most effective when used up close because it buys you the most amount of time to hit the survivor over and over again, because they have to click all 5 pop-ups. Something I would do to fix this is just make the pop-ups scale. Honestly, with distance, like the further away the entanglement lands, there's more pop-ups or pop-ups on the screen. Of course, adjusting for console and mobile, they just have to press a button or tap their screen. But again, up close when you're low on stamina, because 1x can force this with Unstable Eye, I'll get into that later, you have to dodge one way or the other, and it's really just up to luck whether or not the 1x hits you, because, well, you either choose one way or you choose the other. If 1x predicts incorrectly, then you get hit twice, or if he predicts incorrectly, then you get to start the process all over again when he gets entanglement again. And now we've reached 1x's second most oppressive ability, Unstable Eye. Now you might be asking, what's so oppressive about being able to see survivors on the map? Well, that's just one of its uses. Its by far most effective use is to use it at check spots, or to use it in chase, to get speed 1, or to just close the gap between you and a survivor, and essentially just force a stamina advantage because they cannot outrun you at speed 1. And yet again, this makes 1x extremely effective at closing the gap and being this close range nightmare, because a good Unstable Eye usage can result in at least 1 or 2 M1s, and when he gets to the lower end of his stamina, the survivor is also on the lower end of their stamina, and he can just use a Mass Infection to force them to dodge in either direction, wasting stamina, catch up, use entanglement, win the 50-50 or lose the 50-50, and start that same process all over again. And it's just extremely unfun to versus a survivor, honestly. While it's obvious that the speed granted to 1x when he uses Unstable Eye is intended so that 1x doesn't just waste time and chase standing still, It lasts for too long to warrant what it's for, and honestly it should be changed so that it only gives speed 2 for either 1 or 2 seconds, so that this way survivors can't just hold a really tight loop against 1x, abusing the fact that he's slow, but 1x also can't abuse the fact that they get speed 1 for a whole 5 seconds, forcing a stamina advantage on a survivor and forcing them into this 50-50 mind game that seemingly just never ends. Rejuvenate the Rotten is a fine ability, and honestly I think it's one of the only abilities here that deserves some sort of positive change, because effectively as it is right now is essentially useless until it becomes powerful in Last Man Standing, because there is just little to no reason to use this ability, because it grants the survivor you're chasing so much distance that you pretty much just reset chase as 1x. Another non-ability thing I wanted to mention about 1x is the recent end lag changes, as they have been extremely detrimental to 1x's balance and only reward this close range combat sort of killer instead of the long range that was seemingly intended for this killer. Before, when 1x missed a mass infection up close, or an entanglement up close, it would cost him a bit of distance and he would need to close the gap somehow, and the survivor could capitalize off of this and try to get away. But now he can just miss and go straight back into it, landing yet another 50-50 mass infection or entanglement and getting yet another shot. Maybe he lands it, maybe he doesn't. Eventually you are going to win or lose depending on what side you're rooting for this 50-50, and you are going to take damage as a survivor. So I feel like 1x should only be rewarded with the short end lag when they land something like entanglement or mass infection, so that way you can't just easily spam abilities like he does now, and it rewards you for landing your attacks. Another thing I would do on top of making damage and effects scale with range is make the projectile speed scale with range. This would easily increase the skill cap on this killer, as you would need to learn the speed curve of the projectiles and use that to your advantage on killer side, and learning how to counter that as a survivor as well. So that way you're not stuck in this weird 50-50 game every single time 1x gets close to you and you're low on stamina. On top of 1x being able to spam abilities, it's also insanely hard to punish them for using them haphazardly now. So 1x can just pop a mass infection whenever they feel like it, and more often than not they're going to get away with it, and there's nothing any nearby sentinel can do about it unless they're standing right on top of 1x. Again, this is yet another thing that makes 1x extremely effective in close range, because should a sentinel try to punish him and somehow mess it up, then they take insane amounts of damage from mass infection and will probably die within the next few seconds. So all in all, despite 1x being the ranged killer of Forsaken, he is a close range nightmare and the most effective at it. So with that being said, that pretty much wraps up the video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and if you have any questions or if you have anything else to suggest to change this killer, leave it in the comment section. I'd love to read what you guys think about it. And subscribe to SBK.
Yeah,
he does all the editing around here, and I'm only here as a guest.
Did somebody say guest?
Talking for all of you guys. Have a good day.